All right, welcome back to this episode of Think Business Live. I'm really excited to sit down and talk with Kevin Dillon and Jason Krug of Berkadia. They are the co-leaders of the Great Lakes team. So many great things to talk about today, guys. I really appreciate you taking time out of your days. I know you're really busy. But, I thought one of the things we could dive into is, and you guys, you're the co-leaders of the Great Lakes team. You're selling multifamily. You're selling student housing, and when I say team, to me, there's no I in team. And as we are sitting here today on June 4th, I think it's June 4th. We're all kind of coming slowly out of COVID, and I think these past couple months have really shown what a team really is, and what leadership really is, and what that means. So as co-leaders of your team, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that that you've done that have continually grown and evolved your team through these past couple months?
Sure. Why don't you start, Kevin?
Great. I think I'll start with one of the easiest things to work on, having been through this a few times, and Jason now being through two really big ones. Market changes, and that was to really set an example for the team by working hard every day and letting them know what we're doing,
right,
and then setting some standards in which we're supposed to do, and then staying in touch with everybody on a regular basis. Instead of just the once every 2 week call, we were on the phone several times during the week with each of the individual members. Where Jason was talking to a couple a little bit more than I was, and I was talking to Charlie and a couple others a little bit more than he might have been. But we made sure that everybody was being talked to, right, so that we understood their feelings, understood that there's nothing to be afraid of here. This is normal. This is unfortunate. It happens. But then instilling a couple of standards for work ethics, what we need to do, how we need to do it, and to keep a long-term, high-integrity level approach to what we're trying to tell our clients.
Yeah.
Don't go out and tell them to sell. Talk to them about what they're experiencing and what we can tell them from what the other calls and other experiences you've experienced with either Jason or I or Rick Vidrio or some of the other clients or associates. So it was in a lead by example, which I sort of taking off of Jason there. He started out in a very strong format with that, and we then sort of adopted that a little bit and just kept working. So
I love it. Jason, how about you? I just want to comment one thing. I think one of the things, Kevin, that you highlight that's really important is setting the standards. Accountability without authority doesn't mean anything. And so even when times are hard, you gotta nurture, but you still need to set the standards. So I think people actually really like structure, especially in times of chaos. So kudos to you. That's great. Jason, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of what Kevin said. It's over communicating. I think that it's really easy when we're really busy and the market was going crazy. And even for Kevin and I mean, we'd go a couple of days without talking to each other, and we've talked to each other more now than we ever have. And that leads to an opportunity here, an opportunity there. One of the things I think worth highlighting is, oftentimes, and, Kevin and I are a little bit different in age, and I did live through the last one, but it's like, oh, we don't want to hear the old war stories, right? And we've got a young, vibrant team, and there's young and old. And I think the first thing I wanted everybody to hear, that the Friday that we were told we couldn't come to work anymore, I got on the phone with Kevin and Rick, our senior members, and we're like, look, can you guys relay how you felt during the last 4 downturns to myself, to everybody, so that you could really, hone in on, this is normal to feel that way, right? And so Kevin mentioned it when we're talking to our team and saying, hey, how do you feel? That's not just it's a little bit cold outside today. We all have emotion going into this. And so it's okay to air some of those things, but getting back to the fundamentals of, I need to make these phone calls. I need to uncover these opportunities. And it's not necessarily the same topics that we were once covering, but if you're not doing those, you'll look up and this thing will be over and you'll be left in the dust. So it's over communicating and trying to lean on experience from, Kevin and Rick and, the people that have been through this, that this is, although COVID's different than the other recessions, it has very similar feelings of, man, am I ever going to sell anything? Is this market ever going to turn back on? And leaning on that experience was invaluable when you have a team.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I'm a big fan of mentorship, and I'm a big believer that we all need a minimum of 3 mentors. And growing up, my parents always used to tell me, you can always learn from somebody older and younger than you. And so to forget about the past and learning from others, and what you're talking about, what I love about it is just diving into the crevices of what people are feeling, scared of, and talking about that. Because I think a lot of companies, a lot of teams, a lot of leaders, they don't do that. They kind of ignore that, and because they don't know how to communicate it. They just don't know how. And so I just want to dive a little bit deeper into that, because now we're coming out of it, right? It's June 4th, and at least for us in Michigan, things are coming out of this. How do you keep that as the crisis, decreases, but the fundamentals of what the two of you are talking about are still so important?
Well, we had an accountability structure put together for everybody before, and that was self-accountability, but then they had to be accountable to each of the other team members. Did you make your calls? Have you talked to the right people? Are you getting any progress? If you're not, why? Talk to us about why. We can help. So we have a system in place that I think we can continue, and that we had prior, and that we'll continue with going forward, that was very successful. The points now are making sure that everybody stays accountable and understanding to themselves. We went through this COVID crisis in less than a 60, 75 day period. It's not over. So we can't say it's over. We've got a lot of hurdles to come through over the next few months, and maybe even 2 years, as it relates to people getting back to work and how quickly they get back to work, and how does that affect what we do? So getting back to it, we have to stay well educated on what's going on. We have to keep our clients well informed of what's going on. We got to reach out to them as much as possible, maybe even work harder than we used to, which I'm sort of a big advocate about, more time on with clients. But then being very accountable to yourself, and really more so to your teammates, so that you can be successful for them as well as yourself. But at the end of the day, if we're doing the right thing for the client, everything else should work out just fine.
Yeah. Well said. Jason, how about you? What are your thoughts?
The uniqueness of what you said, Kevin, is, and John, to give you a plug, I mean, tremendously helpful in getting, Kevin and I organized to get this off the ground, because we really are player coaches. It's not like we're just managing a team. We're also out there, producing, and you've been extremely helpful in helping us kind of set that foundation that Kevin was just referring to. And those accountability calls, as we call them, we just had one yesterday, and the accountability actually turns more into an opportunity generation. And what it was is, we were putting down clients that were all of us on the team have struggled to either get a hold of, or it's reluctance to make that phone call for whatever reason.
Right.
And so somebody would throw out a name, and then 2 or 3 people on the team would give some background on it, or their spin on it, or, hey, I'd love to join you on that call because of X, Y, or Z. And so that accountability meeting, although the focus was obviously to keep people accountable, was really more of it, how do we capture this opportunity better as a team? Because again, we're overcommitting and talking to each other. In a normal business, Stan, that would have been a 30-minute meeting. We're not going over because we're busy. I've got showing, somebody's out of town, somebody's on vacation, so I think it's capitalizing on some of those opportunities today where there aren't as many distractions, and kind of leading into, what coming out of this looks like. The other thing I think that's really important, I do these endurance events sometimes, and they're very, very long, and anybody can do something for an hour, but when you do it for 24 hours, cracks really show, right? And almost to a T, by the end of a 24-hour event that I've done, it's like a band of brothers and sisters, right? It doesn't matter anything about that person professionally, their religion, their color, none of that matters anymore, because you just have general respect because you went through something extremely difficult together, right? So I look at this COVID mess as an opportunity for us to have all shown vulnerabilities, but then to build off of that. And I honestly think when you go through adversity, it will either make or break a team. And I think if anything, it's only helped to build a stronger foundation than maybe we had going in.
Yeah, I love that. Let's talk about that, because I agree with you. I mean, it is times like this that you either step up and you show your leadership, not only as co-leaders of the Great Lakes team, but just everyone on the team. It's where you just got to tap into more awareness and your deepest potential that you didn't even know was there. And so let's talk about that and connect that to just Berkadia in general. A lot of companies, I think one of the things they found was when COVID hit, they realized that the values that were on the wall were not as strong as they thought they were in the company. And then they needed to live the values in a way that, that was now remote. But Berkadia really is a company, at least from my perspective, where they live the values that are on the wall in the day to day. And it's really impressive. So can you kind of talk about just kind of how that all blended together to really kind of allow you guys to be stronger leaders and just the company to lead through this?
And no problem. Jason, do you want to go first? I seem to go first on a couple of them.
Sure. One of the things we constantly hear from our leadership, and our leadership is a big reason that I'm at the company, because they're setting a vision, they're living that vision, and that obviously flows through what they're doing. Is they say people matter, right?
Right.
And look, COVID has done some things to companies that it's not like there won't be transition, there won't be furloughs, there won't be layoffs for many companies. But from day one, the one thing that Berkadia has tried to do is position themselves for this time period. Meaning it wasn't like COVID hit, instant cuts. It was COVID hit. Look, we said we were built for this. We don't know what the future holds, but people matter, and we're going to try to prove it to you as best we can. And that was a very, ground level, grassroots way of showing us, in my opinion, everything that they've said. Because for years, and we've been in this expansion for 10, 13 years, whatever you may want to call it, they've said, look, we're built for the downturn. And although we all said, hey, it's coming, I mean, we didn't really think it was coming this quickly or in this fashion, but here it is. And they've lived that out. So again, it's leading by example. It's doing what you say you're going to do. And when they say people matter, they've absolutely meant it.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing that the company has really done, and it is they're building a company for long term. They've been investing in the company for the past 5 years to exceptional levels. And the term integrity and respect, the terms integrity and respect are paramount.
Yeah.
Integrity being it's not the way you live every day, just straight out, but what do you do when people aren't looking?
Yeah.
So let's make sure that we do the right thing for our clients and our people inside the company, and we treat them well every day.
Yeah.
It's not a short-term ride. It's not a short-term gain. We are here for the long view. The long view, the long view. They say it and they beat it into our minds, and it's a great beating. And Jason's right. We're here because of the leadership of the company. It is a very strong leadership, both Justin, Ernie, Hillary, Keith, Mike, they're, and we can go on. The whole executive team is readily available to us.
Yeah. It's great.
But aside from that, we've had great, going back to people matter. Our teammates, not just our sales advisors, but the people behind the scenes. They've been working endless hours for us, doing things that working hours that we shouldn't necessarily ask them to even work, but they're doing it. So it goes to integrity, work ethic, and respecting each other is a big part of it.
I love it. One of the things, thanks for that. That's always great to hear. And one of the things that I think a lot of companies realized also when COVID really hit, it was like March 12th, March 13th, is they realized that they weren't as innovative as they thought they were. They weren't as technologically advanced as they thought they were. And so what is Berkadia doing from a from an innovative standpoint, from a technology standpoint, as you know, as we look at this next decade. To me, this is a very critical decade, and it's going to be to the likes, in my opinion, of how we saw the internet just boom initially back, you know, in the 90s. So what is Berkadia doing? Because to me, these are important. These are important things to be in front of.
Sure.
You want to go ahead, Jason?
Sure.
Kevin.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, as Kevin said, reinvesting into
rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah. We share everything. It really doesn't matter.
So we can rock, paper, scissors it. Or you can
I can wait for the next question.
Yeah, right. So I'll give half and let Kevin fill in the gaps. But ultimately, prior to all of this, last year really is when it got started getting rolled out. They've been working on it for 3 years leading up to this, but our CEO Justin Wheeler gets up and says, "Look, we're no longer a real estate services company. We're a technology company that deals in real estate, right?" And that's a big statement because, you know, that's not what you would necessarily describe your job as. But what he was saying is, look, this business has transformed. And even in my 13 years or whatever I've been in, it's transformed a tremendous amount. And if you go back to when Kevin started, I mean, it's just so different, but it's accelerating at such a fast pace. So, you know, a lot of the bigger firms, the really successful firms are looking for, I don't just want facts, I want actionable insights.
Yeah.
So the company goes, okay, we've got all of this data from a servicing book that's $280 billion. We've got all of these third-party data sources, and there's 15 of them now. We need to aggregate that into a single source and create actionable insight, applications essentially for our advisors to use, where they're not doing, you know, months of research to provide you with some of that insight. And so they've created a myriad of apps for us that with a click of a button, I can do the analysis that used to take 2 or 3 days for Kevin or I to do, and provide you with something. Not only that, they've also created a proprietary app that basically started looking by county at which counties are better suited to weather this COVID storm in particular versus others. And there's actually like a resiliency score, and there's some things like that that is just unheard of in the industry. And it's all kind of evolving, but that was work that was done months ago that now is finally taking shape. And it is a tremendous resource to have, especially in a time of transition. But, you know, Kev, why don't you fill in the gap?
So, I just want to comment one thing, Kevin, before you fill in the gaps, because I just want you to dive into one thing. You know, you mentioned the word give clients insights, right? To me, that word is a priceless word, because to me, you know, as with the content that you're talking about, with the technology that's driving that content and those insights, right? The way it's pulling is insights and forecasting and projections and ideas and data is how people ultimately make decisions. And I think that's one of the hardest things for any business person, for any commercial real estate owner, for any multifamily student housing owner, is making a decision, right? And so to me, I just wanted to highlight the word insights because it's so critical. That's the nooks and crannies and the invisible part of the business that I think people forget. And so that's what you're saying, that your intel, your technology, your investment is providing deeper insights.
Right. And actionable insights. Yeah, that's the term that gets used all the time. Is we can all be told something, but if we're not going to be able to make a decision from that, and that was part of, you know, our mission statement is, you know, making multifamily decisions easy, right, for investors and for owners alike. And so that's what the technology has allowed us to do. Now, obviously, it needs interpretation. It needs help. But I believe it was somebody had asked the CEO of Blackstone, you know, what do you look for when you're hiring somebody? And Blackstone is, you know, everything in commercial real estate. I mean, they're the, you know, it's more than 800-pound gorilla, for lack of a better term. But, you know, and what she said was she's not just looking for a Harvard MBA that can spit out some facts. She's looking for the person that's looking 3 or 4 steps ahead, right? And you know, we like to think we're smart. We got a lot of experience, but maybe not Harvard MBAs. But when you equip us with Harvard MBA data mixed with our experience that can create that actionable insight that we're talking about.
Yeah, well said. All right, Kev.
Boy, there's a lot.
See, don't you wish you went first now?
Right. Yeah, right. That's why I went first.
I didn't want to be, take the show that way, and leave Jason with the extras. But he touched on a lot of great points, which is we've spent millions and tens of millions of dollars over the past few years building this, and the two people that run the app for us, and really they're tech geeks, and they really enjoy what they do, which is fantastic. So when you hear the term actionable insights and all this stuff was coming out, and I'm going to use a Bob Nichols comment, with his acquisition people, basically it's simple math for them to figure out the value of a property and what to offer, because it's really fifth grade math. Well, I've been doing this so long, everything I've been doing it's worked pretty well. And to me, it's fifth grade math, not to oversimplify it. Right. But that's what happens when you do something repetitively, as I have.
Yeah.
Now you look at it, and when he started talking about actionable insights and all this stuff, I'm going, oh no, I got to learn a whole bunch of a whole new level of business, right. And that's going to kill me. The reality is, it's simple, and it's
so simple. It's complicated.
Exactly. Yeah. It's unbelievably accessible. We can get demographic reports. We can get school proficiency. We can get crime reports. We can get expense reports on all the neighboring properties without sharing the names of the properties.
Yeah.
We're pulling this from a $285+ billion servicing portfolio, plus other public information that's available to everybody. And with this, they've just done a great job of aggregating it so that we can sit down with the client in less than 40 minutes, tell them all about the new market they want to go into or the market that their properties are in. And when we do that, they then go, oh my goodness, what about this? How many new businesses were opened? It's easy for us to go, oh, here's the button. You turn it on, and it says, oh, it looks like 3% new businesses. You got 16 different companies that opened up in this county for this reason or whatever the position is. It's the actionable insight word, though, is something that years ago I would write my books in equity residential, looked at me and I go, what is it you'd like us to really put in there? He goes, well, you guys do a great job of describing the market, but you never tell us, you never conclude what we should do or how we should look at the information that you just gave us.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's on purpose. We want you guys to do that. And he laughed. We all laughed. I go, no problem. I'll do that on when I get back to the office. I'll give you my thoughts on what the market is.
Yeah.
And that's really what this does. It lays out all the information, and it allows us all to come to the conclusions that they need for them on their own, and we can help lead them in that direction as well.
Yeah.
And it just makes it very simple. And it's all in an app. But the actionable insights, they can make a decision to move forward.
Yeah.
Well, the difference, I think, in the last downturn, and I started just as that started, I pulled up an old call script for fun the other day, and the first question on that call script was, do you still own the property? Because that's how the data was back then. I didn't even know if they own the property anymore, and I had to ask that question. Now I can basically tell them what they had for lunch that day. That's how much the technology has changed. It is absolutely the way of the future, and if we're not embracing it and we're not using it, we're not equipping our clients with it,
right?
We're doing them a disservice.
And I just want to comment one too. A comment. I agree with everything you guys just said, Kevin. But you mentioned, wow, this takes a lot of work, right? Like, just because the technology is there, the investment is there. Part of leadership for everybody, for every individual, is, in my opinion, committing the time to invest in yourself and learn and take time and carve it out so you can be that trusted advisor. And being a trusted advisor means studying. Sometimes I see salespeople who they don't study their craft. You got to study your craft. You got to study technology so you can guide your clients. So, and any thoughts on that, fellas?
So what they did to help us with this over the past, which you had asked earlier, what did they do through the downturn? Every Tuesday, there were 2 sessions called Technology Tuesdays. They were half an hour, and they'd go through all the new tools that they've developed over the past couple of weeks. So there were 10 of them where if you got through all 10, you were a bronze level technology expert with the new app. So, but it was Tech Tuesdays, and you go through each one of those, and if you missed it, Jason and I missed plenty of them because we were on the phone, we would then go ahead and watch the videos after hours. Sitting on the couch watching a little bit of TV when you're not necessarily interested in the show, you can watch that and not be interfering with anybody with the family.
Netflix, Berkadia, Netflix.
Well, when my Vanderpump's Berkadia, I'm on the Berkadia side. So as it related to that, though, it's just a phenomenal situation. They created an opportunity to make it easy for us, and for us to just get right to the information that we needed, and be able to use it when talking with our clients. A great example of that, we're doing a new marketing material this week, and I said, well, I want this that you gave us 2 years ago. They go, well, the services we use have realigned the market. I said, well, how can we this is what I need to know. And we said, let's go to the app and draw a radius around the property, 6 miles. How many new properties are being built?
Yeah.
0. What's the absorption? 100 units. Perfect. That's what we wanted to find. So it's giving us that third or fourth angle on how to draw the information specific to the submarket or to the county or something a little bit larger if necessary. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, so powerful. I mean, I think about just when I was in real estate, almost 20 years ago, just the data that people can make decisions on today, it's really unbelievable. And then to have somebody who can walk them through what the data actually means to me, like you guys do, it's absolutely unbelievable. It's priceless. I want to talk a little bit about the market, what we're seeing today. I'm not going to ask you guys what we're going to see tomorrow because everything seems to be changing in dog years right now. But what are we seeing today in the commercial real estate market when it comes to multifamily, student housing, where you guys, what are your thoughts on that?
Jay, go ahead. Unless you want me to, I don't.
No, it's fine. I'll start. It's definitely it's.
Let me re-ask the question. What are because it's a tough question to answer in today's market, but what are some of the headwinds that an owner should be aware of today?
Sure.
Right? I think that's a better question, actually. What are some of the headwinds where there's less? I think there's less fear right now, right? We're in a market that we're different than, like you were saying, in 2008, referencing 2008, where it was a financial crisis, and today the bank is part of the solution,
right?
And so, what are some headwinds that people should be in front of?
Sure. I mean, I think number one is, and this has changed week by week. So every week, I feel like it has gotten beher.
Yeah.
You've seen, we went from, are people going to pay their rent in March to are people going to pay their rent in April and May and on, into immediately when this starts to happen, a lot of deals needed to be put back together or they were going to fall apart. And then this created a big opportunistic push from buyers saying, look, we saw 8, 9, and 10. We are so excited about this. We're going to see a ton of blood in the water. When can we, start looking at opportunities? In reality, multifamily has weathered the storm very well. I know some of the stimulus has helped people pay rent, and collections have been pretty strong. Other asset classes, not so much. But it's created this gap between buyer and seller expectation, which is normal in a transitioning market. I also think you've seen some inefficiencies in other markets that have kind of, I guess, contributed to that. For example, when we had taken a property out to market and somebody says, hey, is that still available? And we say yes, but at a pretty close price point to, going into this. And they say, well, simply, how can that be? REIT stocks have lost 30% of their value. And if a REIT stock that holds multifamily has lost 30% of its value on the stock exchange, how can this deal be at the same price point as it was before? And so it's created just an expectation gap between buyer seller that has limited, activity in the marketplace. I looked just yesterday to look at Michigan, Ohio transactions, and I don't know what would be normal, but there was a handful, call it maybe 6 or 7 deals that have traded in the last maybe 60 days. Right as this started, it basically was shut off. If it was under contract, it was working, or if it was affordable, there's a different kind of avenue there. But the lender started to have different requirements, and there's been a lot more optimism. There's liquidity in the market. We think the fundamentals are very strong, and at the end of the day, there's a housing shortage in this country, period. And with construction costs, you cannot build single-family homes at a level that most of these renters could afford them. So it's an asset class that we are very optimistic will return right back to, I guess, its previous glory. It's just how long until that gap gets smaller and smaller and the transaction volume starts to pick up.
Yeah, well said, well articulated. Kevin, any thoughts?
Yes. I've always got thoughts. I live, eat, and breathe this stuff. I just love what we do. So it's I've just done it long enough to really create a hobby out of it. But anyway, as it relates to what we've talked to some sellers about, is there is a period of time right now where people are pretty optimistic. In March, everybody was hoping or expecting rents and collections to be down significantly. And the numbers that we were hearing, the 20th of March or the 18th of March or the 25th, was 20 to 30, maybe even 40% off, because the tenants could not be evicted. And then we started talking about the unemployment issues and what have you. And with that, they came up with an unemployment, and everybody got a benefit on that were being furloughed or laid off. Well, they're making more money at $21 an hour now than they probably were before. So they've all paid their rent. So everybody's been collecting it 95% of their billed rents, which was unbelievably strong.
Yeah.
So that really helped damper down any idea of a discount in pricing. So right now we have a small window of enthusiasm where there are a lot of people would like to buy, and they still think the property values are going to be as strong as they used to be. So they're still willing to pay a little bit more pricing than what the seller, or a little less than what the seller may want, but more than what everybody was expecting 2 months ago.
Very good.
However, the headwind is going forward. What happens when the unemployment runs out, and what happens if unemployment kicks up? Well, it's already up. We already know that. A lot of people will be back to work at a certain time, at a certain point over the next 60, 90, or the next three quarters, is what everybody's hope is. And there will be another stimulus plan to keep these people receiving some sort of unemployment benefit between August and the end of the year. That's a big belief. If all those things happen and everybody goes back to work, there's no issues. The headwind is, and the point where I think a seller should maybe pay attention is, it's a likely chance that not everybody's going to be hired back in. Business isn't going to go right back to the same level that it was. So unemployment may kick up a little bit. And if it does, that's going to affect some rent growth, and it's going to affect possibly some occupancy. Everything that we've always studied, no matter how we try to study the stock market versus value of apartment communities or multifamily properties, always comes down to unemployment.
Yeah.
The more employment there is, the better the occupancy is, and the better the rent growth.
Yeah.
And we still have that right now. It doesn't mean we have huge rent growth at the moment, but we do have stronger occupancy, exceeding 95% in most of the markets we're in, most of Michigan and most of Ohio. So I think it's something that somebody should be paying attention to.
Yeah.
And that as a strong headwind, I hate to say. I don't like to talk negatively. I think there's great optimism. I think it's a great time to be a buyer, and so do some of our best clients. The next 5, 7, 10 years, I believe in America, and I believe everybody will be back, to steal some idea of Warren Buffett, but he's right.
I do. I believe in America, and I believe in Warren. Warren Buffett. So, fellas, this was good. This was really insightful. 2 last questions for you, and I appreciate all the wisdom that you have shared today. 2 last questions. 1, favorite, or maybe 3 questions. Favorite recent book you've read?
Go ahead, Kev.
I don't have one that I've read. I've been reading so many different things in particular, mostly journals, news articles, and what have you. I've been reading everything that comes across.
Any favorite places to get your news?
I like to get my news. I've read the Wall Street Journal a little bit more than I usually do.
Yeah, me too.
I've been reading a lot of the real estate publications, and I've been following a lot of the webinars and what have you as it relates to the different educational aspects of what's going on. At one point, we didn't have any lenders in the industry, and then all of a sudden we had lenders in the industry, and then all of a sudden people weren't going to pay their mortgages, so there's a forbearance. So the amount of education in the past 60 days that it was drinking through a fire hose. We were working 70 hours a week, just gaining information that was, by the way, changing overnight.
Yeah.
So I'd love to sit here and tell you I read The Firm or something like that, which I haven't. To go backward.
You're dating yourself. That's a good John Grisham 1980s book. But
yes, it is.
But let me say, I have been reading too. I've been reading a lot more journals, a lot more publications, a lot more articles, a lot more journal as well. One thing that I've really liked lately is something called Morning Brew. I don't know if you guys, it's a mailing list. Mm-hmm. It tells you the news on a daily basis. I think it's daily. That is just, it's easy to read everything that's going on in the world. You guys should check it out.
For sure. No, that makes
whether it's a journal, place, what's anything, where you're getting some good newsworthy stuff.
Yeah. I think what Kevin just said is absolutely true. There has been an education for me, for us as a team that probably wouldn't have happened without this, because with some downtime, you're going to want information. So you're naturally going to be curious. Hands down, the best book I've read. And it was purposeful. I'd read it before, but it was just timely. I've got a copy for everybody on the team sitting on my desk. Is Who Moved My Cheese? It's a phenomenal book for any time of life, but it is so basic and simple. I'm a very application oriented, right? You can read all the books you want, but you don't do anything about it.
Right.
Not what's the point, but honestly, what's the point? And that is a book that can refocus you, especially in a time like this, whereas we all were living life. I was doing this and it was making me successful, and it might return to that, but it might not. And if you're unwilling to raise your head and try and figure that out, I mean, disaster could be around the corner.
Well said. Right? When COVID hit and we were all home, I made both of my kids, 14 and 17, read Who Moved My Cheese and had them write a 1-page paper on it. I had to pay them, but
of course,
just capitalism, right? I
mean, you invest in it,
So I had to have some skin in the game, but I had them read it, talk to me about it at dinner, and then had them write a 1-page paper, because that book is one of the best all-time fundamental books on change and what happens if you don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
phenomenal.
That is a great one, and I'm looking forward to reading that one again. By the way, I was thinking back, what was my most recent book, and I'm drawing a blank on the person's name, but Can't Hurt Me.
David Goggins.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable.
Goodness,
have you read that book, Jason?
Oh yeah,
that is unreal.
Yeah.
So
he's an animal.
If you're in pain in this business now,
right,
David, you know what you do? You pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you get back in the game.
And his book,
question.
I actually listened to it on Audible, so I don't know if you did Audible. But
because he talked about the chapters.
It's the greatest. It's like a podcast in between the book. I'm glad you brought up that book. So my last question to both you fellas is the following. To those kids who are graduating college right now, right? They're graduating college in a world that 6 months ago they didn't think would look like this. Now, when you look at colleges today, studies show that by the year 2030, 85% of the jobs that exist don't exist today. And so they were already kind of coming into a market that was ever changing. But what advice would you give a college graduate who's graduating today?
Go ahead, Kev.
The persistence is gonna be paramount for you. If you've got your goals, well, I'd start back, John, I'm gonna give you a quick plug. Back to our accountability measures, which you would help Jason and I establish for our team, and setting goals would be the other one. Make yourself accountable to yourself. And make sure you have some solid goals. Know what you're doing, where you want to go, and where you're going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah.
And of course, at the end of your life.
Yeah.
it's people do not believe in that enough sometimes. And the one that I would say most important to them, share that with somebody else.
Yeah.
Tell somebody else what your goals are. Now it makes you that much more accountable.
Yeah. Well said.
And there's nothing that gets in the way of your goals other than yourself.
Yeah.
So you can't blame anybody else. So staying persistent to what your plan is and sticking to it, the old stick-to-itiveness, it creates success.
Yeah.
It really does.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being positive.
Well said. Well said.
Yeah. So one you hit on, you got to get a mentor. 100%, hands down. I think that's number one.
Yeah.
And as you said today, and I'm going to take that to heart and go get probably 2 more now, is, have at least 3 mentors.
Yeah.
From my experience, any single time I've went and asked somebody, hey, would you be willing to, speak some insight into my life? I've never been told no. It doesn't mean, that's going to be the case for everybody, but everybody's always so willing to help. And it's on you, the mentee, to continue to persist, because usually they're busy, successful people. And if they don't return your phone call or they don't return your email, you got to keep, looking to them to see if you can carve out some of their time. That was absolutely what I did with Paul Dietz in this business. And it's absolutely, transformed me as a person. So it's get a mentor. And then, second to that would be, be open to opportunities that, you're uncomfortable with. And the number one thing I think we're seeing with our generation, with texting, with email, with you've got to be able to have interpersonal communication, period.
Yeah,
you've told us how many times, you got to just be in front of somebody face to face, over the phone, over a Zoom call with our new reality today. And you cannot just send that email. You cannot just send that text and check that box. It won't work. You have to be able to have a conversation face to face with somebody. You'll have a better bond. You'll have a better success. It doesn't matter if you're on a team and it's the coach. My mom told me something and I never forgot it, was if you're sitting on the bench, whether it's basketball or football or whatever, go stand by the coach. Why? Because when the coach gets mad at somebody on the floor or on the field, he's going to turn around and you're always there. Guess what? You're going to get put into the game.
Yeah.
And it's been tremendous for me. So that goes right back to the mentoring thing. It's some advice that I think is wise beyond years and served me well.
Well said. Fellas, I appreciate you guys as just human beings, as people, as friends, as co-leaders of your Great Lakes team. The wisdom you shared today is so solid. No wonder you're a leading team in the company. Share with people how they can get a hold of you.
You can reach Kevin Dillon at kevin.dillon, Dillon, at Berkadia, BERKADIA.com. My cell phone number is 248-933-9807. And I'm accessible, unfortunately, from my wife's perspective, pretty much all the time.
All right, Jay, how about you?
Whenever you want to reach me, just you shine the bat signal in the sky, and then I've convinced my kids that
the rent roll already.
Exactly.
Right.
Before I give out my phone number, first of all thank you from both Kevin and I. I mean, this is tremendous, and you've been a tremendous influence on our team from where we were last year to where we were when this shut us down so far for a couple few weeks. It's been tremendous. So an absolute pleasure to be on, but I would encourage anybody to reach out to Jon, because he's been a tremendous resource. But same email as Kevin, jason.krug.krug, or cell phone number 248-943-6556, Instagram, the whole deal. So again, appreciate you letting us on.
Good.
Jon, I also have to follow Jason. Thank you for everything you've done for us.
Oh, please.
And it's been an exceptional ride for us the last 2 years. So much so that the very first quarter of this year was the best quarter I've experienced as personally and as a team, without question.
Yeah.
By far.
Put us in a pretty good position right now for the year. So
it's great.
It's been a great run, and thank you for everything you're doing and having us on today.
Of course. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for all the wisdom you shared, and appreciate you both. Have Have a great day, great rest of the week, and we'll talk soon.
Great.
Thanks.
Thank
Guys.
Bye.